So with a two-party system in the States, you get pretty well what you deserve. Right now, it's a battle between a corrupt former president who almost killed by a 20-year-old Republican with a bad shot in Pennsylvania last week against an 81-year-old, pretty well burnt-out Democrat that's suffering from end-of-life issues. So if you had a third-party or four-party option like we got in Canada, be it like the Bloc Québécois or the NDP or the Greens, you could have 5 people running for president, but this is a republic. So as it stands right now, we're going to quote a little bit from Reuters, the article that was posted on CBC just in the last 40 minutes. Joe Biden has decided to step aside as Democratic presidential candidate, showing support to Kamala Harris. Now, according to the write-up, the Democrats have lost faith in his mental acuity, ability to beat Donald Trump. Now, anybody is beatable. In the words of Ken Dryden, don't underestimate your opponent. When Trump found out that Biden was dropping out, he said Harris would be easier to beat. Ladies and gentlemen, never underestimate your opponent. If Donald Trump thinks it's going to be easy getting back in the office, he already tried to kill him, so we can imagine if a 2 or 3 of those swing states who don't go his way, it could be a push or could be a Democratic victory. Because who becomes vice president running mate to Harris? If Michelle Obama comes in, all bets are off. Because Democrats will be motivated by certain candidates. So who decided to be the vice presidential nominee could be a big factor here. Because it comes down to it's like a 44-42 split with Trump, with the rest undecided or other parties. And Kennedy's not going to get many votes when it comes down to it. He's not going to change the decision in certain key states. Now, according to Reuters, Biden dropped his faltering re-election bid on Sunday amid intensifying opposition within his own Democratic Party and endorsed Harris to replace him as the party's candidate against Republican Donald Trump. Biden, who is 81, in a post on X, said he's remain in his role as president and CIC until his term ends in January 2025 and will address the nation this week. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. His initial statement had not included endorsement of Harris, but he followed up a few minutes later with expression of support. Harris, in responding to the endorsement, said she's determined to defeat Trump. I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is earn and win this nomination. He said in his statement, I will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and his extreme Project 2025 agenda. That Project 2025 agenda pipe dream, you have to win both sides of Congress and the Senate to do anything. If the Democrats win one side, good luck with that, because it's just going to be a stop all the way through. For Trump to do anything really major, you got to win the 3 levels of government, and that, again, with a two-party system, it's pretty hard because the Democrat vote is strong in those key states, and that could put a lot of people back in. It's just like the Conservatives in New Brunswick. He lost 11 people from the last election. He needs replacing with 11 people. Every election has to be taken as it is. Now, Biden's campaign has been a rope since the disastrous June 27 debate against former President Trump, 78, in which the incumbent at times struggled to finish his thoughts. He was in bad shape that night for sure, ladies and gentlemen. Opposition from within Biden's party gained steam over the past week, with 36 congressional Democrats, more than 1 in 8 members of the caucus, publicly calling him to end the campaign. Lawmakers said he feared he could cost him not only White House, but also a chance to control either chamber of Congress in the November 5th election, leaving Democrats with no meaningful grasp on power. If they hold at least one of the Senate or Congress, again, it's going to be no strength for Trump in this election. Now, the Harris, 59, who has connections with Canada, became the first black woman to run at the top of a major party ticket in the country's history. There was a black candidate a while ago for the Democrats, but she wasn't a major candidate. Now, Trump again told CNN on Sunday that he believed Harris would be easier to defeat. That could come back to haunt him, ladies and gentlemen. How many cultish rednecks can vote? You can only vote once. So he needs almost all the cultish rednecks to vote for him to win, and that's going to be interesting. Now, Biden's decision was a last-minute change of heart, said a source familiar with the matter. The president told allies that on Saturday night he planned to stay on the race before changing his mind on Sunday afternoon. Last night the message was proceed with everything full speed ahead. The source told Reuters, speaking on condition of anonymity, at around 1:45 p.m. today Eastern Time, the president told his senior team that he had changed his mind. And that basically means that the funding might be reboosted with him out. Now, minutes later, Biden announced a decision on social media. It was unclear whether other senior Democrats would challenge Harris for the party's nomination, who was widely seen as the pick for many party officials, or whether the party itself would choose to open the field for nominations. Congressional Republicans argued that Biden should resign the office immediately, which would turn the White House over to Harris and put House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, next in the line of succession. If he's incapable of running for president, how is he capable for governing right now? I mean, there's 5 months left in his administration. Well, he can resign and still be president. Now, if Harris emerges as a nominee, the move would represent an unprecedented presidential gamble by the Democratic Party. Its first black and Asian American woman to run for the White House in a country that has elected one black president and never a woman president in more than 2 centuries of supposed democracy. Biden was the oldest U.S. president ever elected when he bet Trump in 2020. During that campaign, Biden described himself as a bridge to the next generation of Democratic leaders. Some interpreted that to mean he would serve one term, a transitional figure who bet Trump and brought his party back to power. But he said he cites in a second term in the belief that he was the only Democrat who could beat Trump again amid questions about Harris' experience and popularity. In recent times, though, his advanced age began to show through more. His gait became stilted and his childhood stutter occasionally returned. Now, again, the June 27 debate was, I think, the kicker. He didn't do well in debate. If anything, he was sort of, rambling. Now, he won the primary race previous this year to pick his presidential candidate, despite voters' concerns about his age. However, his staunch support for Israel's military campaign in Gaza eroded support among some in his own party, particularly young progressive Democrats and voters of color. Now, Harris herself is still an unknown factor to a lot of Democrats because usually vice presidents are. Now, Democrats also have a system of superdelegates, unpledged senior party officials and elected leaders whose support is limited on the first ballot but who can play a decisive role in subsequent rounds. Now, Biden bet Trump in 2020 by winning in the key battleground states, including tight races in Pennsylvania and Georgia. At a national level, he bested Trump by more than 7 million votes, capturing 51.3% of popular vote to Trump's 46.8%. So it's going to come down to this. The Republican states will stay Republican. The Democratic states will stay Democratic, but it's those 12 to 14 close races will determine it. So technically, Biden's ticket, includes now Harris, could win 23 states and still win the election. Because California, all the big votes. See, as a Canadian observer of the American election campaign, I really don't understand why they still only have 2 candidates. Because in Canada, you got multiple candidates. And you have state, you don't have these state parties in the U.S., but you have provincial parties in throughout Canada. It's not a republic is not a pure democracy because you don't vote. Your vote has less power in the states than it has in Canada. You can get a lot more done with votes in Canada you have in the states because there's multiple parties, and a fringe party could bring a lot of help to a government. Look like what's going on right now with Jagmeet Singh and the NDP passing a lot of pro-worker and pro-poor and middle-class programs in Canada that would not be there with Pierre Poilievre or like what I call a right-wing candidate. So as it stands right now, don't be surprised the next few weeks Michelle Obama's name comes up. One of the Kennedys, I'm looking at you, Caroline. It's going to be interesting. They have a lot of time to repair the damage. It's only July. But Ken Dryden once said, and it applies to politics like it does to hockey, you never underestimate your opponent. Would Joe Biden would have won again? No. Because why would you vote for an 81-year-old man? But you get a younger ticket, and you get the women and gay vote and the business vote and the what do you call the union vote. There's always a possibility there could be a late round knockout. See, U.S. politics, it's probably the worst system in the history of the modern world because it doesn't make any sense. You know, if you only have Coke and Pepsi, what about RC? What about, no name PC or whatever? You got to have more than left or right. You got to have centrists. You got to have far right, far left to have a balance of everybody. But just because, like I said, these redneck vote and the country people like that, you only get to vote once. Like I said, every one of you are voting in safe states. There's no redneck vote in Pennsylvania or Michigan or even Maine. Maine only is more of a split vote. For them to win, they have to get Democrats to vote Republican. Will that happen? We don't know. That's one thing about politics. Brian Mulroney went in 1984 with the biggest majority the Conservative Party saw in the nation since Diefenbaker, and within 9 years he destroyed the party. Richard Hatfield won 30 seats in the key election in 78, I think it was 30-28, and by 1987, 58-0. Never, ever predict what's going to happen. There's always surprises. And like I said, Donald Trump, even if, put it this way, the Republicans would have won if Trump was assassinated, because if Trump was out of there, the more moderate Republicans would have voted Republican. A lot of moderate Republicans don't vote for Trump. You get all the radicals, but you don't get the moderates. Or can you say the red Tory in Canada? Well, like I said, Donald Trump is the most corrupt politician. He's a two-face and all that. But the fact is, he has the charisma of the vote that gets the vote out. That's what you want in a leader. You got to get the vote out. But Donald Trump thinks he's going to win the next election. If he loses the next election, there is no future for Trumpism. Because he thought Reaganism was last forever. It didn't last. Bushism didn't last forever. But Donald Trump is, deep down, he doesn't respect his opponent. And that's why, right now, by him saying this, he's scared. Why would you say that? Instead of saying, well, I didn't like Biden and, I don't know much about Harris. Harris would be easier to beat than Biden. No. A 59-year-old black Asian woman who can talk your ear off and talk like the Obamas, you put a debate with her, she's going to wipe the floor with Trump. Like she said once, he's the most disgusting individual she's ever known. He said, I don't know the guy, but he's disgusting. So the comment section on this will be cut off, by the way, because my comments on this situation count more than yours, because I got 41 years experience covering the American political system. No comments will be allowed. If you want to make comments, make your own fucking channel and make your own fucking podcast and go from there. But for me, never underestimate your opponent. If you're a Republican, listen to this. You want to beat Biden and Harris, get people organized in the states that are not right-wing. You got to go talk to your Republican pals in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Maine, Massachusetts to vote for Trump. If you can do that, you'll get it made, but I don't think you can do that. It's a push again. Comes down to those 12 states. And like I said, election night, a lot of people thought Trump was going to beat Biden. Never happened. Have a good one. Bye.